Welcome to Talking in Stations. It's May 20th. I am Matterall here with Abby. How you doing, Abby?
I'm good. Hi, everybody.
Hey. And we also have Zen with us.
Doing great. Hello, everyone.
Good. And Adrian Denenard. How are you doing, Adrian?
Good evening. I'm doing great.
Adrian is, as you know, one of our writers and editors for actually, he is the writer and editor of our in-game news paper. We call it newspaper. So he's here to give us a idea of what's going on out there. And then we'll pick up a little bit of news here and there. But then after that, we're going to have a special interview that's hosted by Rich Richmond. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Okay, let's get started. I guess, Adrian, why don't you take us through some of the headlines that are in the game?
Busy day today. I'll be brief. We had a series of battles in Pochven about the last week. I think some of it got covered yesterday. But in Wirashoda, which is basically the home system of Strybog Clade, there's a Tatara there that's owned by Goonswarm. And so a group of alliances came in and attempted to destroy that. A couple of days ago, they kicked it into reinforcement, and then the actual battle, I think, was yesterday evening. But Nulla Seknaya, Shalupin, and Rot Capel came in with about 150 ships, Typhoons, Cerebus, and tried to take out that structure. Now, the structure held. However, Strybog, and they had with them, forgive me for a moment, Wardens of the Abyssal Overwatch and some pilots from Goonswarm Federation. It was a pretty active fight. Nulla Seknaya ended up losing about 18 billion ISK worth of ships. Strybog forces lost 185 ships worth 27 billion ISK. But the key thing there was the structure surviving, because if that had gotten knocked out, they can't easily replace it.
Right. I think this is the right battle report. So here the objectives matter way more than any ISK efficiency. Correct?
Correct. That's their main staging area for all of Pochven. That's basically where Strybog hangs their hat.
Right.
And you mentioned as well that it's a goonswarm structure in there, so like that means that goons didn't come along and place that structure down. That would have been grandfathered in from before the changeover to Pochven, right?
Right. It was a goon structure that was there when the changeover happened, and now Strybog is using it.
Okay,
It's
cool.
nice that that like more nullsec blocks are kind of getting involved in these fights, and as well as just like more content for their pilots. You know, we saw it with Fraternity moving down towards low sec. I think they started to make small inroads into Pochven, but things were solved diplomatically. But it's nice with the lowering of the standings, right?
Since they opened up the gates, yes, there's been more and more groups moving in, more battles happening, and more content, which I think was the intention.
Okay.
Yeah, the gate thing really made it easy for basically everyone to be accessible to Pochven content, no matter it's PvP or PvE.
All right. So we have a lot to move through here. Is there another battle report we wanted to look at?
There's a couple more I could go through, but since we got a lot going on today, I'm just going to let you move on.
Well, let's look at this. What's going on in Curse here between the Initiative and looks like Pandemic Horde, Northern Coalition, essentially Pappy.
Pappy moved in with 347 ships. This is in GTAC 0 Q86 in Curse. And the Initiative has two structures there right now. So Pappy ended up doing 21% damage on the Tatara that's in the system, but the Fortizar was pretty much left undamaged. So the initiative had a much smaller force. They had 95 ships. But if you look at the end of the day,
Oh my God,
Pappy ended
huge.
up losing 65 ships, 8 billion ISK. The initiative lost 44 ships, but only 6 billion ISK. So no structures got blown up. Neither side really took crippling losses.
Okay. And then finally, we will look at this last one real quick. This is 3 TAC D. This is Delve, where the hot war is. What happened here?
Um, has been going on for a bit. We've had, daily battles in 3 TAC DMQT. In this case, Pappy did manage to destroy an Imperium Osterhaus. It wasn't fitted. There was nothing in it. So it was only, I think just the structure ended up being worth about 800 million ISK. Pappy came in with 600 ships, Eagle Moonin fleet like they've been doing. Imperium defended with carriers and a Moonin fleet. Because Imperium's been more willing to drop been more willing to drop capital since it's their territory. Pappy ended up losing about 16 billion ISK. The Imperium lost 8 billion ISK.
Yeah. All right. So this happens every day, it looks like, right? It's a busy area.
Or more. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
been kind of hard to cover. I mainly come to it when it ends up being particularly large at this point or something.
Right. Okay, let's take a
Yeah.
look at some other stuff away from the war news. And this is something that came up today that I'm really excited about. Eve has music. It also has sound, atmospheric sounds, which have been collected and put out by CCP. That was released today. It is a new album, basically. And it's called Atmosphere. And you can't see it here, but it's CCP Old Boy. So if you follow the links, it'll take you to Spotify where it's hosted. And you see there's like a Mar hanger, Caldari hanger, and some planet sounds. So this is really great if you're studying or if you're wanting to do some concentration work, but you want that white noise. This is fantastic. They put this out. EVE Online Atmospheres 1, which means there's probably going to be an Atmospheres 2, which I hope they do. Because I would love to see like the ship skill tree, that music, or or the map or whatever. Be good to see some of that stuff.
Judging by the names of some of these tracks, there's definitely room for a lot more of the atmosphere stuff that happens. One thing I would love to see like a longer version of this. Like, they have like 10 minutes of each of the hangers, but I'd love like a half an hour long session of each hanger or something. So, with like a 10-hour playlist I could fall asleep to and sleep all night with.
Yeah, it's not like you need a 4-minute radio friendly format. I mean, we're way past that now, and this music should go on for a long time. But you're right.
Just in time for this today at work, they informed us that we're getting free Spotify accounts. So
Ooh,
I'm all
that's
good.
Nice. All right. Another thing that came through today, this was really interesting. EVE Academy. This is something we will talk to CCP about later on, about, I think, Wednesday. We'll have CCP and EVE University together. We'll be talking about this. It is EVE Academy. What do you guys know about it?
It just seems to be a fantastic pool of resources for new beginners. So if you scroll down, you see they kind of split the game up into different sections. So whether you want to be an explorer, or you want to become a pirate, or maybe an industrialist, and they just have some great visuals. They've put together really. If you click on the show me more button on one of these, they have great videos they've put together, and they have spoken to some amazing experts in the community that play this game, that are really and truly experts in their fields, and they have gotten this advice from them, and they've been involved in creating this project. So just have a little scroll down there, just for the exploration stuff.
They've
So,
taken
you
the
know, it talks.
flood of info that you get when you're new to the game and sort of made it a lot more digestible and more organized.
Yeah, they've really like here's a scanning basics video, right? So how many new persons started the game and they had that scanning career agent and they didn't know how to scan? Here we are, a perfect, well put together, quick and easy video on how scanning works and how hacking works, how wormhole works. It's as Aderland said, it really is like a distilled pure form of just pure information.
And note a lot of these resources are made by the EVE partners. That's for the EVE partner program.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is actually not made by CCP, but actual players within the game.
Right. It looks clearly like it's a lot of work. I think this was designed by Ashy. She put out a tweet today, who has Ashy in Space website. It's also very beautiful. It's done in this style. So I think that her work's here too. And then the information from other players. Good stuff.
Yeah, and they have one for each kind of skill tree or path you might want to take in the game. We're just looking at the exploration one now, and some of the videos, like the production quality, is fantastic.
And then for the resources at the bottom, this is one profession, exploration, that we're looking at, but this is really long. There's a lot of dense information in here. So
Yeah, so as we're looking at the exploration version, they offer corporations in game that might be useful to you. So like Signal Cartel, Eve University, these are groups that would be active in the exploration field. If you go into the more combat or PvP focused ones, they'll recommend more combat or PvP focused corporations and stuff. So this is tailored to that. And as well, look with streamers, Nth Dimensional, who we had on recently, who's top of the line exploration person right now.
yeah, Nth Dimensional here. And this is so that's very current, right? He's not that old in the game. Arslike's been around a while.
Yes, it's great.
So it is curtailed to each profession. So that's nice. It's got nice curation and everything. Again, here's Ashy's website. Always recommend Ashy stuff. Really high quality, good polish on it. Good info and friendly. But CCP doing a great job and giving people who are new to the game that what do I do now answer that they've been looking for, which is well, do you want to be an explorer? Do you want to be a PvPer? Do you want to be an enforcer? Do you want to be a soldier of fortune? And then it explains concepts of, the Magic 14. We actually talked about that just the other day, but you should check this out. It's really cool. It's called EVE Academy. It's under the eveonline.com/now file. And so it's eveonline.com/now/eve-academy.
Yeah, I think it just takes a lot of the hard effort of finding this knowledge. As a new player, this knowledge is scattered throughout old Eve University wiki articles or Ashy's website or blog and other places. So really just they've gone to the best people and the partners that work in the game, know this stuff, and they've just put it all together under one banner and made it much more accessible for the new person.
Yeah, awesome.
And also on their YouTube YouTube channel, they uploaded 4 new videos today. One is about resource and mining.
Can you give me the
One
link
is about,
to that?
yeah, it's in the Daily Show channel.
Oh, okay.
One is about scanning down cosmic signatures. One is about understanding security status, and the last one is about getting started with missions.
And here they are.
Yeah, so these are the videos from that EVE Academy.
Great. So you can just look at them here. Cool. That's great stuff. Okay.
And lastly, one more. Yeah, the CSM interview candidate stuff.
Yeah. Go there. That's where I was going to go. Go ahead.
Thank God. Yeah, so today over on Twitch TV, with CCP TV, we had a fantastic introduction to all of the CSM candidates that will be coming up for the CSM elections. Voting begins sometime next month. I think it's the 8th to the 15th. But I highly recommend everyone just to sit down and watch this, where CCP Swift and CCP Dopamine give you a quick little introduction to the candidates, their name, their speciality, some of their experience in the game. Some of these people have been on the CSM in the past and are running for re-election. So it's really good. I think everyone should get to know all of their candidates and decide, who they think is best for the game. And when you're voting, it's a single transferable vote system, so you don't suffer from putting down a few more names. So if you see someone that maybe you live in nullsec, and so someone like Mike Mike Azaria, who lives in highsec, he does great stuff for the game. It might be worth showing him a vote. These people who might not necessarily affect your gameplay, but certainly would be better for the health of the game to get a more even representation.
Right. So CSM, though, I mean, the big news here, they did read out all the names, but now we know the list of names. And a lot of people that were supposed to be on there weren't on there, which was kind of interesting. Like Dark Days, for instance. We expected her to be Fraternity's #1 pick. Not on there. That's curious. What's Fraternity going to do? That's a big voting block. They're like maybe the third biggest voting block out there. And they don't have a candidate now. So that's interesting. You also didn't see Extra Squishy, which is not that surprising since he wasn't allowed to be a partner either. So, I think what happens is when you apply to do these sorts of things, you get to have to go through internal affairs, AI department, and they are the ones that have the history on people's behavior. So if you were reported for any reason, or you were in some way involved in something that was distasteful to CCP, they don't want that representation near them. They're just going to deny your application. And we saw like 3 or 4 or 5 people like that, I think. But more notably, Oren, who was running from HK, not on that list. And I think it was Gideon of all people, but he had something of a passport snafu, so I don't think it was behavioral or anything like that. I don't know if it was behavioral for anybody, but it could just be technical, where somebody didn't fill out the paperwork correctly, or the paperwork had some kind of technical issue with it. I think that's the case in Gideon's thing. So the point is, it's not easy to get on the CSM official ballot, so congratulations to those people who did. My buddy Ron USMC did make it on there, and thank you for that raid earlier, Ron. So he is there for one of the guys from Test. You know him from Ron USMC, the streamer, because you guys are watching him and us, hopefully. So good luck to him and everybody else that made it onto that list. It's not that easy to get on that list. You got to stay on top of CCP. They won't tell you something's wrong. You have to find out for yourself, and you have to do it before the deadline, because there's no going back now. So that's a tough situation for some people. Okay. So let's.
Funnily enough, sorry, Ron is in chat. He just said that he is a friend of Fraternity. It's a complete coincidence that he's announcing that, by the way.
Wow.
Ron streams for like 10 hours a day. He's a machine.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
What a coincidence. He knows Fraternity. What a coincidence. That is good play there. All right. Any other news that we need to cover before we transition over to, as I said before, we're going to have an interview with group Flying Dangerous. You might have heard of them. They will be here in a few minutes. But first, do you guys have any other news you guys wanted to hit?
Have a great evening. Thanks for listening.
No? Okay.
I think I covered everything I had.
All right.
Yeah. Go watch the CSM and get out there and vote, because if you don't vote, you can't complain.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this with Rich Richmond and Rundle and Flying Dangerous. All right, welcome back to Talking in Stations. We're here with Rich Richmond. Say hi, Rich.
Hello.
All right. Rundle is here as well. There he is. Okay.
Yep.
So Rich and Rundle going to talk you through Flying Dangerous in this next segment. We'll be back after a while. Take it away, Rich.
Flying Dangerous is a independent and small sovereign-holding alliance, and they're also quite well known for being new player friendly. Now they've had quite a long history in EVE, but there is a recent one. Now, tell me, what is the history of Flying Dangerous?
I guess I'll pick that up. I'm Lofty. I'm the current executor of Flying Dangerous. I was also the founder of Flying Dangerous back in the early 2000s. Flying Dangerous came from an idea that you don't need to necessarily accept aggression if you're a new pilot or an industrial pilot or someone who doesn't know what they're doing. You can still fight back. That was the idea. That was the ethos right at the beginning. It started small with a corporation called SCI, Southern Cross Incorporated, and that idea through an alliance structure, which was eventually spawned over a period of about 3 or 4 years.
I see quite a few Southern Cross corporations within the old Flying Dangerous alliance.
Yeah, we've taken corporations as a way to divide function and purpose and identity. So I suppose corporations are quite often used as a construct by a CEO to just create a community within a corporation. We use corporations as divisions within an alliance. So in a sense, our community is one alliance rather than being one corporation, if that makes sense. People move between our corporations within the alliance based upon their status, based upon the level of responsibility they accept, and also challenges that we put in front of those people in order to move between those alliances. So I'm not sure if that's unique or not, but that's one of the characteristics we have. Flying Dangerous is very much a tiered, gamified organization where people move through the ranks, and that's depicted by the corporation they're currently in. We do have a more open alliance, which is potentially dangerous, where we invite more, I suppose, traditional corporations to join.
Now, there's quite a few guests that are ranking members of Flying Dangerous with us. Jin, Triple Manny, Zip, and Lofty. We'll start with Lofty. Tell me about yourself and where you began with Eve.
I began with Eve right back at the beginning. I had to go. I think it was 2003, 2004. I then left the game and came back in 2006. I had an experience where I was being attacked by pirates and decided that the corporation that I was with wasn't really interested in fighting back. And so I formed a corporation which would take new people like me, because I was a new person back then, and we would learn how to become aggressive. So I founded Southern Cross Incorporated. Over the years, people joined SCI to the point where I decided that we needed to create a tiered structure, which wasn't available to the corporation, I suppose, structure. And so we created new corporations which allow new people to join at one level, mid-level, then a high level, to create like a stream of capabilities and management.
Now, I've encountered you in previous regions. I think I remembered roaming in Syndicate before, but where did the corporation begin? Was it high sec or low sec, or when did you move to where?
It began in Iridia in a system called Eurotel, actually. That's where it was founded initially.
And then after Iridia, where did you go?
From Iridia, once we gained a few, a bit of capabilities, we were identified by a alliance called Pure. Pure took us into their space, which was in Vale of the Silent back in the day, where we joined a fight club essentially between Pure, Smash, and Roadkill, who used to be in Geminate. That was just before the drone regions were introduced into the game.
I see. I know that you lived in Syndicate for some time, but you've recently moved to Pureblind. How is the environment of Pureblind treating you compared to Syndicate, which has also hosted a lot of newer groups in the past?
Pureblind offers a more diverse range of PvP. It's very, very close to Jitter, obviously. It has access to a lot of low sec that surrounds it, and also null sec. There's also NPC space, NPC null, right in the middle of Pureblind. So in terms of the diversity of PvP, which is available in Pureblind, it's quite rich. There's also, I think people just see Pureblind as a great place to roam. It is so close to Jitter that any fleet forming up there just looking for somewhere to shoot finds that Pureblind is pretty close. The EC TAC Toronos Gate is quite a good spot to find people who are just like bored and looking for something to do. So in terms of PvP content, Pureblind has been more diverse and pretty rich in terms of experience.
I see.
So is that what took you to that region? Was the PvP, or were you looking for a bigger game or a bigger fish to fry at the time?
Definitely PvP. PvP is our primary focus. I don't know if you have our website available, but if you look at our website, we have 4 pillars, and the primary pillar is PvP. So PvP is our holy grail. That's what we follow, and that's what we seek in all of its forms.
Right.
Do you do much commanding, fleet commanding, or is that others in your organization that handles that now?
I lead a lot of cruiser fleets, cruiser frenzies as we call them. Cruiser frenzies are where we get a whole bunch of T1 cruisers, put brand new pilots in them, and take them for 80 jumps around the universe, and then drive them into a brick wall. That's my style of FCing. However, we also have a good crew of FCs behind us who look for, I suppose, different forms of fleet types as well. So I'd also do capital FCing as well. Zip is one of our main FCs in terms of home defense and strat ops. So I brought him along today as well to talk about those kind of fleets.
Yeah, can you introduce everyone else actually for us? Or let them introduce themselves, I guess. Just toss the task.
I can do that. So Zip is one of our strategic FCs. He's also one of my directors. He's very, very good with integrating new people and introducing new people into Figgle and the game in general. Triple Manny is an executor, or previous executor. I had to take a break from the game back in about 2009, and Triple stepped into the gap for me for about 3 years. So Triple's one of our previous executors. He also moves a lot of stuff. Guru, who is our main European time zone FC. He does a lot of community development in the European time zone, plus a lot of FCing. And DJ, who is basically our, I'd best describe him as probably our marketing guy. He is a very, very good dude in terms of like creating branding and putting a polish on the thing we are.
Yeah, your one pilot seems to have disappeared, unfortunately.
He's having trouble with his European internet for whatever reason.
That's all right. All good.
Now, a lot of these. Now, do a lot of the people that fly with you currently originate in Flying Dangerous, or did you pick them up somewhere from someone?
Typically, we scour looking for either new pilots who are completely new to the game, or pilots who are in high sec that haven't experienced the wonders and joys of PvP. You know, maybe they are risk averse, maybe they're concerned about their capabilities, whatever. So that's where the majority of our pilots come from. After they've been through us, we don't like to hold on to the gems we build. We allow them to filter off into the rest of the community, because essentially that's what we're about, building the EVE community at large. So we have pilots that we've taken from the initial starting stages and then spread out across the universe. That's kind of like, you know, what we do.
We don't seek out experienced PvPers. They will sometimes fall into our lap. They'll come along and, you know, say, hey, I want to try out this new thing that's not, you know, a large block or somewhere that's filled with people who are really good at the game, but kind of, you know, see what you guys do with teaching new people, with running fleets that are designed to be handled by experienced and non-experienced pilots alike. So it's not like we exclusively look for new players, but it's kind of what we market to, if you will.
Excellent. I think you brought up kind of probably the most differentiating point for me of what you guys are about. You've been around for a long time, so you obviously have a nice seat of experience, but pilots and anyone joining you can experience nullsec life, but not in a big, large nullsec block life, right? So it's a different way of playing. It's a different style. I know that that sort of game style really interests Rich, which is why I think this interview is happening primarily. So let's kind of just focus a little bit on some of those initial building block stuff, right? How do you decide we're going to do nullsec, but we're not doing the big block? Is it really the focus on building Eve and letting the leaves fall off the trees and blow wherever they want after the fact, or you seed your gems across the universe, as you said, to put it a little more direct?
If you don't mind, Lofty,
Yes.
there's a couple of ways that you can kind of view your organization in Eve. Some groups define themselves by their leaders, some groups define themselves by their space. I think a lot of groups want to define themselves by the values of the community that they've built, independent of space or leaders, but many fail in that attempt. I'm not saying that we're perfect in that, but it's the closest I've seen in my some 10 years of playing the game to a group that is tied more to itself than to anything that it happens to control, hold, or do in the game.
Okay. Rich, you have a pretty good rich history here of just over a couple of years, right? But so when you look at these guys, what do you see? Like, what's your interest? What interests you when you see them?
I see a lot of, well, I see what makes Eve, well, quintessentially makes Eve the game that people enjoy. It's what made Eve great at the very start, when there's lots of smaller groups who've all got their own interests and they all banded together to form small alliances, which formed bigger alliances. This is the origin of, well, Null. This is a cradle of civilization, and I quite like it. I like these small independent groups that they all begin to carve up a little bit of their space and go on their own adventures. And I learned this because I fly with a lot of very old players, people who've played for, well, since Band of Brothers days, since 2006, 2003, those type of times, and they like the fact that there's small independent groups, fledgling groups that are thriving in regions like Pure Blind and regions like Syndicate. To them, that's quintessentially what Eve should be. It should be lots of small groups, lots of fighting, and just constant conflicts, constant entertainment.
You know what's something that's been interesting. And actually, through the 1, 2, now 3, this is either our third or fourth time since I've been with Flying Dangerous that we've forayed into Sov. It's not, most of the time in my time here, we've been in NPC space of one type or another. But a couple of moves into Sov have yielded some interesting patterns. One is that for whatever reason, when we do temporarily join a coalition, um, we will be handed what we perceive, or at least what I perceive, as space or responsibility that is outsized to our size. And I don't know why groups keep doing that. It's hard to pin down why that happens, or what they perceive in us. And then second is when we're not part of a coalition but we own space, like now. It's like being the hot girl at the dance and watching so many sides in the area around you constantly vying for your pledge to blue their coalition. And I feel like many other small groups who own space probably deal with this as well. And many of them fail the test and accept the offer to blue up, if you will.
Now, for a group that's been around and has taken Null, what's it like that the changes over the however many years? Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there for the old times. I only started playing recently. So, how have things changed for Null since the creation of Flying Dangerous?
Triple or Lofty would know a lot more about that. I started playing in 2012, and they started playing at least a couple of years before that.
Triple.
Yeah, sure. I was handed the Alliance, and then we took space in Esoteria with I forget what the coalition was called, Dinner Squadron, I think. It was with the Initiative, and we were handed a pocket of space there. And I remember sovereignty blockade units. I hated that. I hated having to put down pauses. I hated all the aspects of it, but it gave us new content, and we had fun with it as much as we could have. And coming back to the game now, it took like, I don't know, I'd say 4 or 5 years off. Having the new mechanics with the toasting and the capture the flag events, it seems a lot more interesting to me. I really like the new Sov mechanics, at least for me. Mind you, like, we're not like the Sov Holding Alliance, and we don't deal with these things every day. But from the perspective of a person who doesn't like Sov, I like the way it's structured now. Like, I don't mind toasting. I don't mind the capture flag events. I like the timers. I like all that stuff. I didn't like the shooting the eye hubs and sovereignty blockade units and stuff like that. So I that's what I could say about this.
Tell me a bit about yourself
Ooh,
and what you do.
started in 2009 and installed Eve. Immediately got somewhat addicted. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I had no interest in PvPing. I was mining in a belt with a Hulk, I think, after 2 months, and I'm like, yeah, this is it. I'm gonna mine, and I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but something's gonna, someone be a big industrialist one day. Then somebody warped to the belt. I'll open a chat convo with me, and he's like, "Hey, man, we're doing some PvP tonight. Cruiser up. Come join us." I'm like, I don't know how to PvP, dude. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. He's like, "Yeah, no, it's meant for you. Come meet us in Jariza." And I think it was like 0200 or 0300. So I made my way there. My first cruiser up was with Lofty, and ever since that first cruiser up, ever since we tackled, or the scouts tackled a Moros on a station, and we were shooting it, even though we were outnumbered, I got addicted to PvP, and that's the only thing I ever wanted to do. So I went from mining mindlessly in high sec to being with a group of people, talking and having a good time and building relationships, and like a matter of a day, pretty much. It was great.
So you were recruited when you were quite new, and you get. I know you get a lot of new players in Flying Dangerous. But what's it like to do all a lot of, I guess, teaching and helping new players get their legs in this game?
It's a tough one because I think a lot of people fall in the bitter vet syndrome after a few years, where you know everything and you don't want to deal with the here's your overview setting, here's what you need to do, and you take everything for granted and you think people just magically learn how to PvP by themselves. That's why I love what Zip does, where he really, I want to say handholding, but there's method to the madness, and he really, it's a humbling experience being a new player or being an old player and teaching a new player, because you could put yourself in his position every time. All you need to do is think about the early days of when you were trying to PvP and having no idea what a D-scan was, having no idea how to point anything, not knowing any ship types. Um, yeah, so avoiding the bitter vet syndrome and humbling yourself is a good thing. You want to pass the knowledge down to other people. And Zip, when we recruited him, was in 2013. He was completely new. And now he FCs fleets that I'm a part of, and he's a way better FC than I could ever be. It's beautiful seeing that. Or a person like Ivy Lash, who like he left Figgle, he went to Rote, and then now he's running Psychotic Tendencies, stuff like that. You know, you're like, these players started not knowing what an Ibis was to like leading super cap fleets. It's fantastic. I love that aspect of the game.
Do you love seeing some of your new players and I guess graduates end up in all sorts of different areas in Eve? I know I've encountered one of your graduates warming up. He went and flew with Hard Knocks. I think he was entrusted with flying some of the more critical ships in their fleet combats, and now he's a director in a small gang group that I was with.
It happens a lot with Flying Dangerous, but warming up, I don't think I ever had the opportunity to fly with him. I think I was away from the game at that point. But there's a lot of that stuff that happens, and I love that stuff. And we had a lot of people in Black Legion too, and just seeing the Figgle name, I have to say this. Initially, it bugged me when people left that were skilled and went to do the other thing, but I could somewhat understand it. But having played this game now for a long time, I'm like, yes, no, it's good. You spread the knowledge, you get more knowledge from other places, and you see them do great things. It's something beautiful, and it's something I really like. I love it when they come back to us after and just like, you know, of course I love it when they come back to us, but I like that. And I'm going to say this, being AFK or away from the game for 5 years and coming back to it is not like riding a bicycle at all. It's like I was lost. I was completely lost for the first few months. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like, I think I found out what a stork was like a month ago. So yeah, it's a very humbling game, Eve.
So I'm gonna jump in right there. So all right, you got a bunch of people listening. The show gets pretty good, time on YouTube and stuff. Somewhere a miner in high sec is gonna listen to this and go, "Oh man, that might be me. Maybe it's not me, but how do I try? How do I do that? How do I jump in?"
First of all, it is you. Especially if you don't think you can do it, it's you. And if you don't think you can do it, you're right, because you're going around trying to prove yourself right. You're saying, I don't think that I can do it. It's too complicated. It's too hard. You have to have years and years and years of experience to do this right. And I couldn't do that. You are, I hate this term, but you are engaging in a self-fulfilling prophecy. I really hate that, but it's true. I challenge all of those players, and while I'm at it, I challenge anyone who thinks that they are not cut out for whatever they want to try to be cut out for, to do the hard thing and try to prove yourself wrong. Proving yourself right is easy. Proving other people wrong is easy and can be fun. Proving yourself hard is not fun and not easy until you find out that you were wrong, and then you're really good at it, and suddenly you can do a thing that you were convincing yourself before that you could not do.
Okay, so I got the motivational speech. I'm pumped. I'm ready to do it. What's the next step? Do I just find you guys, or can I go find anyone? Like, really, is it really as easy as finding Flying Dangerous and convoying one of you guys? And should I just head to Pure Blind in a Rifter? What should I do?
I would not
Open up the
just-
channel, relaxed recruitment, grab one of our recruiters, and change your EVE experience. So just go to relaxed recruitment in game. That's a channel. You can open that up. Talk to one of our recruiters in there, and start playing EVE.
Before you go,
There's one more thing to what you said, just go to Pureblind. We recruit a lot of people that we kill. So come to Pureblind, get killed, especially if you're solo, and we will convo you and be like, hey, what's up? You gave it a shot. We like that. Do you want to come and see what it's like flying with us? So both work, but yes, relax recruitment in game.
There's a reason why we call our region Space Detroit, because it really is. Jumping from
Space
Torino
Detroit.
to EC, yeah.
That's awesome.
The people who, well, I'd be careful going straight into Pureblind, because one of the first systems you end up in is called ECPTAC 8R, and it's such a bloody region that, sorry, it's such a bloody system that the very system in game has a description referring to just to, well, people saying hold the pod, because so many people die there. So going straight to Pureblind, I would say definitely talk to them about getting in and moving your stuff in before you just go jumping all of your belongings in, because there are a lot of people, myself and a few of my friends included, who do camp that gate in, that first step in. Has that been a frustration for newer players, just, I guess, dying to things like that?
It's a
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a frustration, but it's a learning experience too, right? I mean, you got to learn the horrors of 0-0, and what better way to learn, hey, you need a scout, than jumping into EC TAC, right?
Yeah.
You can also consider it like a resilience check as well. Those people who can't make it through the first gate, well, maybe they wouldn't make it further.
True. And hopefully I made that clear, that just jumping into Pureblind is a recipe to die, and then hopefully learn something from it. I was not suggesting that you could just come to Pureblind and we'd let you waltz in and not try and shoot you. I don't know if you guys usually do this, but I see someone in chat mentioning that they were in Flying Dangerous, the new corp, and we put 100% tax rate a couple of days ago, which is true. It's something we'll do sometimes to basically raise funds for our cruiser fleet. We'll say, we'll announce in advance, we're going to do a sort of fundraising thing. We're going to raise the corporation tax in all of the corporations that Lofty controls to 100%. We'll rat up the space that we own for a couple hours and then drop the tax rate back down to 0. It's, no offense to the gentleman or gentlewoman in chat, but it is a way for us to also weed out those who are clearly not paying attention to the communications we're putting out to the alliance. If you have no idea why the tax rate went to 100%, then that's because you're not paying attention.
Right, that's a good point. And there's many other groups like you guys. I mean, not to put you guys on the spot, but there's more of you out there, meaning there's more small alliances doing the small gang thing in nullsec. So look, you guys, wherever you're at, south, north, east, west, there are groups like this. The whole point is take the jump, players. Listen to your desires and go on and get in that public channel of whatever group and join and get some different experience. It could be low sec even. It could be nullsec. It can be lots of different things. So let's talk a little bit about that then. Let's just transition to more as the experience where you guys have had to put this together, some of the trials that maybe other small groups, or maybe there's a listener now who's like, I got 3 or 4 friends in high sec. I actually want to go and try and get SOV, or I want to go take my group and live in nullsec. Maybe they don't want to join you. They just want to go do their own thing. So let's talk about the mechanics of that against the big blobs. Like, are there special things you need to do? Kind of walk me through that, walk the audience through. Here's the considerations you need to have when you are small, because you don't have endless ISK and you don't have endless pilots and, right? So how do you have to behave? So let's start there.
You have to be incredibly persistent. It helps a lot to plan your campaign in such a way that you can slow burn the campaign and not burn yourself out while simultaneously burning the opponent out. And you mentioned large blocks. I'll just, I think everyone knows this, but it probably bears saying for someone out there, taking space from Test or Goonswarm or Fraternity is probably an unrealistic goal. You should find somewhere where there is a challenge for you that is just barely out of your reach, and go there, dig into a place that you can live, an NPC station of some kind, and grow to meet the challenge that you set in front of you.
Okay. But
I know that's not very specific,
Yeah,
but
no,
it is a start.
it is. It is. So what about the solve mechanic? Rich was starting to talk about solve mechanics. So I think that's actually a really good point, right? Because solve mechanics kind of changed, obviously, Fuzzy Solve, and it kind of a little bit directed towards a numbers matter gameplay style around the iHubs and TCUs and those sorts of things. Okay, you guys got 4 systems, and there's only I won't give away your number on here. Well, people will look it up. You guys got about 180 pilots, 180 people, right? So you got 4 systems, and there's some pretty reasonable other guys in between because you guys are like on either end of that constellation. So are you guys struggling to keep it? Or is it like just fights all day? Who wants to jump in and answer? I don't know if Jim, this is maybe more your area or not.
I think this is actually a zip. This is a zip area.
More of a zip question. Okay.
Yeah, let's do zip.
So realistically, we own two systems. There are 2 other systems that we own TCUs in. The situations in those systems are in flux. I couldn't talk about them in any sort of understandable or reliable way, even if I wanted to. It's not an OPSEC thing. It's just we're not quite sure what's happening there, to be quite frank. Lofty might know more things than me that he doesn't want to say now, or he may know more things than me that he does want to say now. But in terms of our space that we do consider under our control, 93P and GM, it is not currently a struggle to keep the space. We're not dealing with constant incursions into our SOV. Once you establish yourself in an area, there is sort of a feeling, and again, this depends a lot on your neighbors, that, hey, they've got that space, they must have the ability to defend it somehow. Sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not. In our case, we live every day in our SOV as if it were our last, because it very well could be. There are many groups around us who could, without breaking a sweat, remove all of our structures and us from our space. Obviously, we would look forward to that day and put up a fun fight and try to asymmetrically turn the tables as best as possible to get the most amount of carnage out of the situation. But we are not secure in our space, and I don't think that anyone who is setting out to accomplish this should expect to feel secure in their space.
All right. Nice. So, Rich, I'm going to let you jump in here because I know one of your main topics on many talk shows is the uncomfortable nature of what nullsec and the way that nullsec should be uncomfortable. You got a few questions in that direction that you can ask the guys?
Oh yeah, what is the present situation in Pureblind? It's obviously been a historically violent region. There's some very powerful groups next to you, and there's also, well, with every group and with every alliance and every region, there are certain, what's the best way to call them, warlords or people who just generally go there and initiate a lot of fights. What is life as, well, in Pureblind like as of right now, and the political situation that is going on with, I think, almost a 3 or 5-way war in Pureblind itself?
I'd say currently at the moment there's 4 main entities in Pureblind, or having influence on Pureblind's region. The largest entity is Hostile State, which is run by We Form Volta. They have a coalition of alliances which predominate in terms of their strength in Pureblind. After them is Bandalogs. Bandalogs are kind of receding in terms of their influence in Pureblind, mainly due to the pressure of Hostile State, specifically led by Toilet Paper, one of the alliances in Hostile State. After that, there's Womp, and I think you've spoke to Thanik a few weeks ago on this channel. He's taken a hold with his new industrial alliance, and he's got a constellation there which he's developing and desperately trying to create a diplomatic, I suppose, space for himself in terms of like what he can hang on to and what he can convince people not to invade. And then there's us, where we're the small guys on the block. We can like hang on to that edge of pure blind, and essentially we just try to remain neutral as possible. So that's really the state of pure blind as we see it anyway. I imagine there's a whole level of complexity beyond that which we're not aware of, but from our perspective, that's what we see.
Now, a lot of the space that's been held, is that just held on paper where they don't really have any serious investment and anybody could come in and just tear that paper up? Or is it something more solid where they can't exactly tear it apart without bringing in some scissors?
Whose space?
The pure blind in general, and I understand your two main systems are fairly solid. The other two you mentioned are just sort of on paper right now.
Those systems were, we occupied the TCUs. We took the TCUs during a fight we had with Banders. I'm kind of reticent to say anything about Banders, but we've had a trust problem with Vandalogs. There's been a few things they've said which haven't really been the way they've acted after saying those things. So eventually we started a war with Vandalogs just to see how that would go. They're a much larger organization and they proved that on the field, but we kept fighting anyway. We managed to take a TCU from them whilst they were distracted looking the other way. They managed to kill a few of our structures. They managed to take one of our systems, actually, LTAC-T. And then after a few about a month of fighting, things settled down. After they'd settled down, the status quo was we had the TCUs and they had the iHubs. And anyone knows how SOB works, the iHub is the important aspect of that game. So really, it looks like we have them, but we don't really. The Banders had them. A few weeks after that, once it kind of became obvious that we were not going to manage to either hold or invade that space, toilet paper moved in and just cleaned up the mess and moved Banders out of those systems. So currently we hold the TCUs and toilet paper hold the iHubs. Essentially, that's not our space. It's toilet paper space, and that's really the status there. There's been no real conversations beyond that.
I see. Now, with this kind of battle brewing in Pure Blind, where you have a hostile state, you have Bandalogs who've historically just stayed there all the time, and you also have Fraternity currently moving in. And I believe Noras has actually pinged one of the FCs in Volta, telling him to resub because he wants to meet him on the battlefield. How is it like, I guess, trudging through this situation? What is it like to be handling things diplomatically on your end?
I do most of the diplomacy. I'll be honest, in terms of the majority of it, I try to avoid being a diplomatic entity for Flying Dangerous. I try to present us as a neutral organization, which is one, neither a threat or a resource. So not a resource, i.e. we can't be bought, we can't be persuaded to join a coalition. And on the other side, we're neutral, so we're also not a threat. That's the tightrope where we walk. We often have to be blue to some entities, just for operational reasons, but it's something we try to avoid at all costs. So just trying to not seem like a power, I guess. Not seem like you have the capacity to do anything really significant that's going to affect anyone else's objectives, or upset them in a way that makes them feel like that we need to be removed, and also not strong enough that they need to annex us and take hold of our capabilities. And that's a hard tightrope.
Now, we talk about how it's like the hot girl at the dance. How much, I guess, table room and lip service happens when it comes to diplomacy of this scale before guns are brought to the table?
Essentially, as soon as it becomes clear that an entity wants to influence the way we behave in a way which is either detrimental to our community or detrimental in a sense that we won't be able to continue functioning, training new players. That's when we become violent. And by violent, I mean we obviously can't confront large entities directly on the field, but we can certainly become a big pain in the ass. That's really the only card that we have to play in terms of those kind of engagements and influence.
Something that I want to add, if you don't mind, Rich. There's a sentiment that I see a lot, which is don't own anything, and then you can't lose anything. And these people are PvPers, and it makes me wonder how they feel about the ships that they undock, and why they would undock a ship if they could risk losing it. Really, our space, our structures, the tenuous, almost non-existent political position that we hold or don't hold, really it isn't one, is like a ship that you would undock with the intent to PvP with it and lose it. All is transient. The space, the structures, the ships, except the group that we're, the community that we're trying to build. Everything else is disposable. Everything.
That's a very good way to put it, actually. Is it? Yeah, exactly. Our true value is not space.
That's a neat concept for sure.
And to your point, Rundle, I don't think it's particularly unique, but it could use saying, I think, a little more often.
Yeah, fair enough. So one of the items that I know that's been bandied about a little bit is, how do you make money? How do you do the non-PvP things in your system, right? Like you got a couple systems. There's a lot of other stuff. You can't just be sitting around waiting for that one PvP action to happen. Maybe you can when you got that low sec pipe, but can you tell us a little bit more about just day-to-day life in that area? How do you make money? How do you go about, doing, sites and all those fun things, whatever it is you do?
So I have my own way of doing this, but I actually wonder if Guru's internet is good enough for him to answer this question, because we see I feel like you probably see a lot more action in EU time zone to make that more difficult for the people in your time zone.
I guess my perspective of it is that we're no different from any other Null alliance. It's just on a much smaller scale, only owning the two systems. So, we're filling our time, running sites. We have a wonderful relationship with Vault and an Industrial Alliance and HiSec, who do wonderful things in terms of helping us on the mining side of things and things that don't naturally come to a PvP organization. So we have that side of things. And I think the history of Figgle goes back long enough to say that we've all developed good habits in terms of being self-sufficient personally, whether that means that you run high-sec missions, whether that means you do things like PI, you run around doing exploration of wormholes. Everyone's got their little niche. So I'd say that it's quite diverse.
Well, I guess the reason that I pointed to Jiro is because I know that we've had a lot in US time zone when I'm out ratting, because I'll just go rat in my Gila and talk to people on comms, because it's something to do two things at the same time. I need to be doing two things at the same time. And when people will come in, I'll stay in the Gila in the site and let people tackle me, and then we can kill them. And that's been really successful in my time zone. But I know that there's been a lot of trouble with that in EU time zone for various reasons. And I wondered if you could kind of talk to that, because it does, I think, affect the ability for our members to make money at times, if that makes sense, Kiro.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think it's sort of the other way around in a way, Zip. So from my point of view, I think that we sometimes do our job in terms of ratting and that side of things a bit too well. I think what's made us a big target is doing lots of ratting, and people see that big shiny ESS, and it brings a lot of trouble to our door. Sometimes maybe a bit more that we can chew on at certain times of day, and that's been an interesting thing to sort of get to grips with. Especially with the way the meta around the ESSs has changed so much.
But
Yeah.
Since that,
you're go ahead.
A lot of groups have a lot of space where they can spread out their routers along many systems and put small amounts of money into each ESS along many systems. When we're concentrated so much in basically two systems, the ESS grows because we're all routing in the same place. It's a very interesting problem to have.
Does the dynamic bounty system affect you much, or is there too much violence and it keeps it at a stable rate?
I love it. I love the dynamic bounty system because I love doing PvE and PvP simultaneously. It's something that makes PvE bearable for me. And so killing people in our space makes the ratting more profitable, which makes more people want to come to our space to die, which makes the ratting more profitable.
So is it over 100% on regular, or does it drop below?
Over 150 on the regular.
Over 150 on the regular. Wow, that's all because of the PvP on the gate or just in the system, I guess,
It's
right?
because
For
of
sure.
Space Detroit, man.
That's
right.
Space Detroit. Yeah, back to the Space Detroit, right?
Well, Detroit, there's lots of potential for rebirth, but you say you cannot be bought. And it's curious because with a smaller group, you can't afford to field things like raw cores because it's so difficult to protect. And the way you make money is just so much different, especially compared to established groups, which might have old money left somewhere, or they've got significant amounts of passive income from something. Are you able to SRP things, or you also help pay things using the 100% tax and the fundraising?
Well, that's very rare. Lofty would probably be much more able to talk to the financial portions. The 100% tax thing is like a once a month kind of thing.
And I just want to mention about the 100% tax thing. It's for 3 hours, and it's more of a team building. Let's go shoot some red X's together in the hopes that somebody steals the ESS. So whatever money we make is not enough to cover pretty much anything. But like the last 100% tax rate we have, I gave away a Marauder, a bunch of other ships. So it cost probably 10 times more than what we made. So it was more of a, let's all get together and have some fun, pretty much.
I think in terms of SRP, we do have SRP. SRP builds into how we scale the roles and the functions of the corporation. So you need to have reached a certain level within our corporations to actually be eligible for SRP. Just to put that in perspective, once you first join Pickle, in the first corporation you join, there's no SRP, but there's also no tax. So it sort of scales in terms of your contribution and in terms of what you get back from the alliance, depending on where you are in the alliance. Above that, we have a lot of alumni who are very, very generous. We got a lot of good people in places all around Eve, in much larger organizations who throw us a bone. We also have, and I have no idea how this fits in with the EULA, so I'll put it out here publicly. We also fund a lot of our SRP through Patreon. We basically have a Patreon which is funded by about 30 people, and we convert that all into ISK. So that's in a way we're using real life money to fund our organization in terms of SRP.
Now, with this organization, however small or however big, how do you handle getting players there and getting things to there? There's obviously the really difficult, the big system ECP to track, but to get past. But how does logistics work? You're quite close to Jita, which is both a blessing and a curse.
That's so a triple question. Who runs that whole department?
Yeah, basically.
DJ could probably handle it though too.
Yeah,
if you
DJ, go
to.
for it, man.
Yeah, I can help. So we get a couple routes. There are always scouts available. So when we're onboarding, new people, we're trying to make it as seamless as we can. We know that For somebody who's brand new, the concept of moving to nullsec or lowsec is really scary. And so, we have a pretty decent, extensive jump freighter service that we run with our senior guys. Triple actually runs it. And either that or, like you said, where we're at geographically, we're close to Torinos. We can scout people through. We can go the back way, although the back way through lowsec is, I think, scarier than trying to get through EC and Torinos. So we try to get people through there. But really, we try to eliminate as many hurdles as we can to making the big plunge to nullsec, because we know for brand new guys, it's a scary deal, and most of the time, those are the guys that load up their Badger full of stuff that's got, 12 million ISK worth of things in it. And they're the ones who get bubbled on the EC gate and, and die horribly if they try it themselves. So that's where we try to step in and really give a helping hand to the new guys that are coming out.
Well, I'm glad so far you haven't had the same issue as Thanak did with that poor guy losing all of his stuff in that freighter, gating it through lowsec.
The 100 billion ISK freighter, yeah.
We have in the past, and we will in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
With the kind of people that we're looking for, you almost inevitably run into situations where someone does something that they did not know not to do, and you just can only pick up the pieces afterwards and try and help them to learn a valuable lesson from it.
And hope as many people as possible also learn from that lesson.
Yes.
You could spend an hour telling somebody. Sorry, go
ahead. You spoke about an hour?
No, sorry. I mean, you could spend an hour telling somebody not to do something. Like, I remember last week, DJ and I were talking to somebody, telling, don't jump your jump freighter, blah, 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 this and that. Next day, what does he do? Jumps into a Sino beacon, pretty much. We're like, okay, an hour down the drain. But some people are going to just do what they want to do, even if you offer all these nice little things. And, but yeah, it's a learning experience, I guess.
The ecosystem takes care of what you can't manage to express sometimes.
But the beacon provides. What can you say?
It does. I have no idea. Like, okay, we did this. I had no idea that it was going to be so fruitful,
lucrative.
Yeah, I saw like it happening down in Delve and all this stuff, and I thought,
can't possibly be that easy.
This could only happen in Delve because all these people are concentrated here. No, not so. Put one up in 9.3p and guess what happens?
Nice. So, talking about Delve, what's your guys' take sitting way up there? What's your take on the war, real quick? Don't care?
That about sums it up, really.
Straight up don't care. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Well, we actually have a lot of friends on both sides, and it's kind of like, watching your parents fight, really. It's like, can't really say much about either side. We're just hoping they're all having a good time.
Well, with the new players you do get, how long does it take for you to train them up? Or how long do they take to get to a point where they're a lot more confident in themselves?
It completely depends on the individual. You could have someone come in on day one knowing absolutely nothing and have a great attitude and give up after a week. And you could have someone, the exact same person, great attitude, and they're scouting and starting to ask about when they can start FCing fleets in a month. It can be that varied of a time frame. Though that second group of people are usually the people that we end up promoting into our higher corporations very quickly.
I think also you can look at it from a numeric point of view as well. So like if you take 100 people that you recruit who are brand new or high sec dwellers, you will lose 50% of those people either due to boredom or lack of interest, or it's just not for them. And then from that 50 that's remaining, you'll find 20 people who are persistent enough to develop those skills. And from those 20 people, you'll probably find 10 over a period of probably 3 months who develop into, I suppose the word competence, all right, but people who are able to
I think
withstand
that's exactly
the
right.
nullsec environment. Yeah, it's a bit derogatory, so I would say it.
I'll say it then, competent.
Well, with those ratios, I want to know what is a common trait between them that separates those who may not bloom as much
Resilience.
for those who. Hmm?
Resilience. That's the
Resilience.
characteristic you're looking for in people. Resilience. The ability to look loss and hardship and discouragement in the face and keep going.
PvP is failure. You have to fail. If you expect to go into PvP and succeed immediately, you will never succeed. If you go into PvP expecting to pay for each lesson with a ship loss, you will learn quickly and efficiently.
Do people learn now? Do people learn better in a Ferrari, or do people learn better in a
Old
Ford?
beat up BMW, old beat up Ford. Do not learn in a Ferrari. That the same analogy I just used. You are paying for each lesson with a ship loss. Would you rather pay $10 or $100 to learn it the same lesson? That's all there is to it.
And that lesson really is lost. We have a doctrine which we call cruiser frenzy. It's just cruiser hulls with T1 fittings mostly. We provide that fitting to all of our new members on a cruiser fleet for nothing. They just turn up, they get a ship, they get to fly into a brick wall, and that's ultimately the goal: to fly into a brick wall, to experience the ownership of a spaceship and then the loss of a spaceship, and the fact that really the only difference between those 2 points in time is your capacity to fly it. You became a better pilot whilst you owned it, and that's why you own things. You lose them, but the capacity to fly it and what you've learned while you're flying it remains with you.
Excellent. I have one other real quick question. I think we're going to have to start winding down here. And maybe Rich has another final question. But so CSM announcements for today. There's a list of people. There was a whole thing. Rich was there, but not trying to bring Rich into that in that context. What I want to know from you guys is, because there's lots of news around the CSM, around the big blues, the big the tests, the goon swarms, that they're just going to fill up half, 3/4, whatever. So you're a small entity. What do you think about the CSM? Is it back to the don't care answer, or is there value there, or what do you guys think about the CSM in that aspect as a small, different kind of NovSec entity?
Personally, the CSM is a fascinating concept to me. I think it's something that is very uniquely Eve, and simultaneously, I generally end up caring very little about it in practice.
Anyone else want to try that answer?
I kind of agree with Zip. It is a fascinating concept, and unfortunately, it's one of those concepts which only works if democracy is fair. And unfortunately, the situation we have is, and again, with in terms of like forming coalitions and larger parties which forms conglomerates have more influence. Again, over the CSM, we perceive that. So for smaller organizations, it might be harder to have their views heard on a body like the CSM. As such, perhaps we don't pay as much attention to it because we don't perceive that us and other organizations, I imagine, don't perceive that they have as much influence on it.
So CCP were listening, which they sometimes do. What would you tell them to change it? How would you have any quick, short ideas on, hey guys, this is how I change it to be able to involve groups like mine or group like ours?
Surely when you have a large population of users, a consultative approach is always good. Getting user stories and collecting these user stories from a diverse group is going to be better than having a selection criteria which specifies the type of people who are going to be voicing their opinions. So I'd say the CSM is good in terms of representing the larger bulk of the community, but I'm probably going to suggest that other methodologies could be used to get a more diverse perspective on all of their users, which in turn might actually attract different people to the game.
Okay. Rich, you got a final question there? Or sorry,
Sure,
Zip,
yeah.
you got an answer there?
Just something brief,
Yep.
I guess. I would say that in terms of there are large fish in the pond, and if we want small groups to flourish without becoming large fish, unfortunately, CCP is, in my opinion, in my estimation, not the answer. There are many, many CEOs and leadership groups in corporations that have taken their corporations and the trust that their members put in them to take them on the adventure of Eve and abdicated that responsibility to a larger, more established leadership group and said, thanks for joining my group, or thanks for joining our group. We're going to let these other guys decide what we do, and that's going to be your adventure. There you go. I see that as an abdication, and I don't see it as CCP's problem. I see it as the leaders of these groups' problem to solve.
As the various CSM candidates begin speculating on the future of Eve, there is something quite bright for groups that are seen as new player friendly with the recent academies, I believe. Now, as you mentioned, your group, you hold on to your space as if it's the last day. What is the future for Flying Dangerous with the whole new player academies and the rather interesting situation brewing in Pure Blind? What's to the future of your group?
Lofty, you want to try?
I think you're right. We do live day to day, but in general, we have a long history. We have a long history of being consistent in terms of what we do. Our future will be to roll with the changes which are presented to our organization, and in the process of rolling with those changes, to try to continue to build the Eve community at large by teaching people the attraction of PvP and getting them addicted, I guess, to this game and this community. That's our broad future, and it's been the same future for over a decade. As to what the changes are on the micro level from year to year, I'm sure there'll be different influences. But again, we'll just roll with those punches. We'll just stick to that ethos of trying to introduce people to the game and build them into the community.
Do you think this Eve Academy, this outreach to new players, will benefit you and take you to a new step towards the future?
Possibly. It'll definitely provide us with new, I suppose, more people to run through the process, put it that way.
I don't know if you've looked at it, Lofty. I really haven't. I don't know if there's 20 seconds to say, what it is that's being done from anyone who's looked at it.
I think it will feature certain groups that are considered new player friendly and academies for players to go to.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah, it's support.
Possibly had
No, go ahead.
I do remember this being a failed initiative a few years ago that didn't work out too well. I remember this being a thing that Flying Dangerous at the time, it could have been quite some time ago now, sort of 2012, 2013, that like so many of things that CCP do sort of flourishes for maybe a month, whatever current cycle they're working to, and, falls by the wayside again. So I encourage it. I welcome it. And if it, pans out to be a long-term thing that becomes a long-term part of Eve, then that's brilliant.
I suppose it is good that it's being acknowledged that actually needs to be something considered as to whether this approach works or not. Well, I suppose that'll be answered in the days to come.
Well, I wish Flying Dangerous the best. I think the small groups and having more small groups in Eve, especially in Soft Null and Lowsec and wormholes where places of PvP are more frequent, it's a great thing for Eve. It's the lifeblood that keeps the game flowing, and if that stops, I think the game would stagnate. It will develop clots and such. But I think you're the fresh lifeblood that keeps this game going.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you very much for having us on.
Absolutely.
for
Well,
having us,
thank you
guys.
guys. Yeah, appreciate nice open topic, and I would just Rich, thanks for helping as well, and bringing these guys here. I would say in general, if you're a small gang, small organization, nullsec, lowsec, whatever, and you want to come, maybe you have a similar story, or you have an alternate story. I mean, this is what really ultimately Eve is about, and we would invite you to at least come on to the Discord and tell us your story, and maybe we can get you on air and do a similar interview and see what see if you have a difference, see if there's something that you're doing differently. And ultimately, that's really to me what this story tonight was about. Was hey, look, you don't have to be a big nullsec block to love and enjoy nullsec and do Eve. This was one story, one way. Maybe not the right way, maybe not the best way, maybe it's perfect way. Who knows? That's up to you as the players and everyone else to decide, where you take this story from Eve, right? So, anyways, thank you very much. I'll leave that as the final say on this. I appreciate everyone's time, and see everyone next time on Talking Stations. Good night, everyone.
My dangerous.
Hey.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Thank
guys.
you.